Welcome back to Team O'Neill. I'm Wyatt. What we're gonna look at, killing it. Welcome back to Team O'Neill. I'm Wyatt. What we're gonna look at today is how to slide around in cars with dynamic stability control active. We've got videos on how to disable ABS and traction control and stability control, and in the rally cars we get rid of it all. But in reality, all modern cars have these systems. If you rent a car, if you've got a vehicle and you've got a warranty and whatever it is, you just want to goof around a little bit. How do you slide around cars that have dynamic stability control? Because there are some really easy ways to kind of cheat the system just with your own driving skills. For this episode, we're going to be driving a mid-20-teens Ford Explorer Cup car that's been turned into our little cone machine out here for the rally school. So this thing pulls you out of the ditch and fixes cones and does all kinds of stuff, but it's got stability control active. So we're going to take this out and do some laps out here with all these safety systems going and just see if we can slide this thing around and have a little bit of fun. All right, so we've got basically 6 little tips I came up with for this video, but there are many more, and all vehicles are different. So it's definitely a bit of a learning experience, but number one, getting into a vehicle like this, right off the bat, just see what you can turn off. Is there a traction control button? Can you hold the traction control button for 5 seconds? Sometimes you can turn a lot of these systems off, or at least numb them out so that they're not so intrusive. It's not clicking on as soon as you do something silly. Sports cars, that's going to be your sport mode and track mode and things like that. The Focus RS drift mode or whatever it might be. We don't have too much in this Explorer except for the kind of intelligent all-wheel drive thing, which has a normal mode, kind of a mud ruts mode, a sand mode, and a winter mode. In a sport utility or a pickup truck like that, almost always, if you're goofing around, go for the mud or ruts mode. If you see like the little truck in the ruts or something like that, because that often turns off your traction control, where, a snow mode might make traction control really intrusive. I did drive around with this in snow mode and it's god awful. You cannot drive up a hill. It just cuts the throttle as soon as it senses any wheel spin at all. So I've got this in that mud ruts mode, and that's going to be traction control off. This is all-wheel drive. I cannot adjust the ABS. It's going to do what it's going to do, and the stability control is going to do what it's going to do. But let's play around and have some fun with it. Once you're going and you think you're in kind of a happy place, the first actual driving tip, when you've got stability control and you want to slide around, when you come to a corner, give it a big abrupt turn in, like a lot more than you ever would. In a normal car, if you know how to drive, you're probably pretty smooth and gentle with your turn in. Don't. With stability control, come in, big abrupt turn in. And what that's going to tell the computer is we want to go left right now, because it's got a steering angle sensor and it's cross-checking the steering angle sensor versus the yaw sensor. And that's the big thing that stability control does. So if you come into a corner and you just go, huh, big hard turn to the right, it senses that, it knows you're not turning, and it's going to brake that inside front wheel. So you can intentionally activate that stability control, that individual wheel braking, to your advantage. As you come into a corner, big turn in, more than you'd want, and it'll pulse that inside front brake, and that will get it to turn in quickly, and it can initiate a little bit of a drift for you, kind of get a good slide going by doing that. So I'll do a run up through the slalom here and just big turn in. And it finally turns, big turn in. And you see, you can get a decent amount of rotation out of this thing, but being a lot more ham-fisted with the wheel than you probably know you should be. Once you are turned in, stay turned in. And that's very tricky for a lot of people, because when you feel the car slide, you want to countersteer, right? But the problem is, when you countersteer, the steering angle sensor and the yaw sensor contradict each other, and that's going to cause that stability control to activate. You'll find that if you're turning right and sliding right, the steering angle sensor and the yaw sensor still agree, right? It's only when you're sliding right and turning left that it senses we've got a problem. So keep those two in agreement and the stability control will not activate. That's difficult because that means as you're coming into corners, you're holding the steering angle in and holding the steering angle in and just resisting that urge to countersteer, you know? But that's what you need to do if you want these vehicles to slide around. You're holding the steering angle in longer, you know, all the way through corners. You're holding the steering and not countersteering as quick as you might otherwise want to. Number 4 is just link turns and use pendulum turns. Just like you do in any car that kind of wants to understeer, you know, it's gonna understeer through corners. But if you can get it to slide once, you might be able to get it to slide back again and back and forth and hold those slides and see, you know, once you've got some oversteer, you should be able to link that into your next corner. You know, once you're kind of going straight, it doesn't want to turn, it kind of wants to understeer, but if you can kind of flick it and get a little swing going one way or another, you can often use that back and forth, and it's going to be tricky. It's your job to time it right, but if you can pull it off, you can get some pretty big, fantastic things to happen for you. So you've turned off as much as you can, you're using big quick turn-ins, you're holding that steering through the corner longer than you normally would, you're linking corners together, you're doing pendulum turns. The next thing you really need to do is just listen and learn, because every year, make, and model is going to behave a little bit differently. And it's never going to conform to do what you want it to do. If you try something and it doesn't work, you've got to change. And these are all a little bit tricky. So, you know, try a little left foot braking, try lifting and then turning then lifting and braking then turning then braking, and experiment a little bit. It's like you got to figure out kind of the cheat codes where, ooh, this works well, but that doesn't. It's your job to adapt to whatever this vehicle will do. The other thing with kind of listening and learning is, you might think you've got everything off, but a lot of times it'll still start coming back on. You can hear the brakes at individual wheels. You can kind of tell what's going on and feel it. A lot of times you'll turn everything off, but as soon as you hit the brakes, it all comes back on. Or you turn everything off, but as soon as you're going over 30, it all comes back on. So there's a lot of different vehicles with a lot of different systems, and it's all networked together, and it's just your job to listen and learn and try and experiment and feel and play, because, you know, hey, whatever you're used to, you know, with an analog vehicle and different drive lines, this is just a different thing. You know, you're really giving the computer inputs and information and waiting to see what it does with that. So once you get some seat time now, you should be able to get some good slides out of a DSC car. You know, you can make the thing rotate coming in and out of corners. You do what you can do with it. The next and last kind of thing, number 6 sort of for our purposes here today at least, is let the DSC activate again to get you out of trouble. You know, once you are sliding around and you've learned how to avoid the system activating, it's up to you when you want it to kick back on. And the way to do that is, again, to let the steering angle and the yaw sensor contradict by countersteering or whatever happens. If it starts to go wrong for whatever reason, look where you want to go and steer there no matter what, and let that system work for you. What you're going to find is out here on the ice, DSC is a powerful, powerful tool. You can come into a corner and just stay turned in and let it apply individual brakes, and it's gonna magically skid steer you around that corner in a lot of ways that a normal car is just impossible. It's just not gonna be able to do it. So use it to your advantage. You know, it's easy to say, ignore it, deactivate it, you know, drive so it doesn't activate. But when it's an advantage, know that it's an advantage and use it. So that's kind of all we got for you as a general driving DSC cars. When you get into them, use a bigger, faster turn in than you might want to. Hold that steering angle longer through the corners than you want to. Link corners together. You know, if you can slide one into the next and into the next and use pendulum turns. Keep listening and learning and figuring out, you know, experimenting and trying all these different little things in different vehicles. and then just be willing to let that DSC kick on and know how to activate it so that when you want it to work, you know how to make it work and it's there kind of as a backup for you. So thank you so much as always for watching. If you're interested in these kinds of videos, check out our channel, consider subscribing. If you're interested in coming out, doing some driving courses, taking some lessons from the guys out here, you know, teamoneil.com, amazing winter conditions right now, but we're open all through the summer, rally cars, skid control, you know, if you're out on the track or anything like this, you know, getting really dialed with your skid control out here in a safe and kind of friendly environment is only a good thing, and building those skills for when you need them. teamoneil.com. Until then, have fun, be safe, and we'll catch you next time.